According to allegations, Clarence Thomas has been receiving bribes for many years as a Supreme Court justice. The plot thickens even more. Let's go ahead and put his picture up full mass. The only picture of Clarence Thomas smiling, obviously, after he just finished a trip with his very rich billionaire Republican friend. A new ProPublica investigation details how Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas has now accepted hundreds of thousands of dollars. I actually think it goes into the millions based on my calculation, but they're saying hundreds of thousands of dollars from billionaire GOP donor, from a good friend of his, according to him, over 20 years. He has not disclosed any of it, which is a violation of the anti-corruption laws passed after Watergate. Now, he has an excuse for this. That excuse came today. I will give you his excuse or his reasoning. This is the same justice, by the way, who refused to recuse himself from cases involving the 2020 election that his own wife tried to overturn based on evidence in record. Since conservatives all of a sudden care about the mere appearance of judicial conflicts of interest, this should be a bipartisan scandal, but it is not. Here's a list of gifts Justice Thomas accepted from a single billionaire, Texas real estate mogul Harlan Crow. So we have flights on the private jet. We have at least 3 vacations on a 162-foot super yacht with a private chef. And we have annual stays at the private residence of the billionaire 105-acre resort, which has 25 fireplaces, 3 boathouses, clay tennis court, a batting cage, and a lifestyle replica of a Harry Potter character, which is weird. Just one 2019 Indonesian trip could have cost more than $500,000. Do you understand this? $500,000 for one trip if Thomas had paid for it himself. His salary is a mere $285,000. How do you expect him to survive on such a small salary? I mean, he has to keep up with the billionaires in the GOP. No small amount, but it's not enough to be traveling like that. And yes, his wife, Jenny, the Make America Great Again activist, was there too. Shocking. Not Jenny Thomas, not Jenny by the book Thomas. There's more. Thomas, meanwhile, did not comment initially when the story came out. I do have his comment now, but he's previously tried to appear like an everyman. So in a recent interview for a documentary about his life, this was so laughable, which, by the way, the billionaire funded, at least partially. The justice said, and I quote, "I prefer the RV parks. I prefer the Walmart parking lots to the beaches and things like that. There's something normal to me about it. I come from regular stock and I prefer that. I prefer being around that, the Walmart parking lots and the RV. This is big. My favorite meat is hot dog energy. It definitely feels reassuring that the same justice calling for the court to overturn the right to birth control and marriage equality is being wined and dined by some of the wealthiest conservatives alive." Now, I want you to understand the context here. He does a documentary. This documentary is paid for by his friend. And in the documentary, he represents a character dynamic about himself that's contrary to the record. He doesn't say he likes yachts, even though the record says he does. He has admitted he does because he admitted these trips are real. He says he likes to go to Walmart He likes RVs. Because he comes from normal stock. Let me tell you something. Anybody who talks like that about themselves does not come from the place they are trying to make you believe they come from. Who in the hell talks like that about themselves? All right, so Senator Dick Durbin, Democrat, the chairman of the Judiciary Committee, said Thursday that the committee would take action on this information. This behavior is simply inconsistent with the ethical standards the American people expect of any public servant, let alone a justice on the U.S. Supreme Court. But guess what? Every court in America has an oversight dynamic or oversight committee. In Georgia, it's called the Judicial Qualifying Commission, or the JQC. It is different in different places. This goes from traffic judges all the way to your Supreme Court judges per state, except for the United States Supreme Court. They are the ones who do not have an ethical or moral code that's enforceable. In order to enforce a rule against a Supreme Court justice, you must impeach them. That is it. That's your remedy. Now, could his colleagues move to somehow censor him? Sure. It's just paper. It's not much they will actually do beyond that, even though constitutionally, I think they have the power to do so, but they do not have the heart. There's more. Finally, when considering what steps should be taken to further investigate these trips, it might be helpful to imagine if today's news was not about Justice Thomas and Harlan Crow, but about, let's say, Justice Sotomayor and a major Democratic donor. My guess is that House Republicans would spring into action so quickly they forget about Hunter Biden's crack pipe, and everything else. Thomas said he sought guidance. This is his response today. He sought guidance from colleagues and others in the judiciary. Who? Drop some names, sir. We need to know who's part of this conspiracy. At who instructed him that he did not have to report the trips on his financial disclosure statements because they constituted personal hospitality from close personal friends who do not have business before the court. Thomas said the Judicial Conference recently changed its guidance on financial disclosures and that it is his, and I quote, intent to follow this guidance in the future. Let's go back to his initial statement. He said he sought guidance. Let's put it back up. He sought guidance from who? He sought guidance from colleagues and others in the judiciary who instructed him that he did not have to report the trips on his financial disclosure statements because they constituted personal hospitality from close personal friends. Well, what does that mean? To me, that's Justice Clarence Thomas saying that all these judges on the conservative bench do it. Because I talked to them and they told me it was okay because obviously they know it's okay because they do it. Do you see what I'm saying? I think he just dry snitched is what they call it. There's more. Congressman Hank Johnson, let's put him up. Congressman Hank Johnson out of the state of Georgia released a statement. His response, though not surprised, I am deeply disappointed. I am angered by the revelations of this report that Justice Thomas has been brazenly corrupted and compromised by Republican dark money mega donor Harlan Crow. Representative Hank Johnson, ranking member of the Judiciary Subcommittee on Courts. He's also a former judge, by the way. A lot of people forget that. Over the past 20 years, as Justice Thomas has sanctimoniously paraded as a pristine and principled man, he was being wined and dined with private jet and yacht travel, while also being lavished with accommodations, meals, expensive gifts, including a $19,000 Bible. A $19,000 Bible. So here's the thing. AOC hit it right on the head when she said he needs to be impeached. Period. Does. He may not be the only one, but definitely as it relates to information available publicly, I mean, damn. He is the front runner for sure. But here's the other side of it. If this would have been Sotomayor, caught up in a similar situation, a similar circumstance, this dilemma, you do realize the committee to impeach her would have already been impaneled. The investigation would have been well on its way. This talk about we need to do something, we need to hold them accountable. No. You see, what I've learned is that Republicans hit first and ask questions never. The leadership dynamics are so different. We're being outmaneuvered by individuals who are not as thoughtful, who are not as strategic. They are simply one thing better than the other side. They can message well, and they just go ahead and try to push the envelope, even if it means breaking the law. And we're not advocating anyone to break the law, but damn it, push the envelope, push the agenda, advocate for the communities that actually elected you. Speaking of a man who does advocate for his communities, we have the mayor on the program. Mr. Mayor, have you seen such extreme, at least ethical violations based on the conscience of humanity from a judge who does, in fact, look at cases that could benefit or harm his dear friend?
Yeah, but unfortunately, it was always on TV. It was. This is not reality.
Right.
No one can. If you wrote this, it wouldn't even be a script that people would take seriously. A $500,000 trip on a 129-foot yacht. People need to understand that's more than half of a football field. A yacht for him and his wife, while his wife was being paid from this said person. He can continue to say that this person had no business in front of the Supreme Court, but when you're donating $5 million to Republican candidates, every time one of the issues they support come in front of your court, those are his issues in your court. This is absolutely disgusting. Wherever this gentleman has his bar license, I'm talking about Clarence Thomas. People may be confused because I said gentleman, and that ain't what he is. But that's what I'm talking about. Wherever his bar license is, that needs to be on the investigations immediately, because this is not ethical by anybody's standards. And I think the fact that these nine people can live in this space where no one can hold them to any ethical standards is absolutely scary to me. Yep. And we're gonna watch Republicans as they already started. If you watch how Fox covered this news, they didn't say mega donor. They tried to downplay it and say, oh, he had a few gifts from a donor. But we're talking about a $19,000 Bible. Now, I'm not saying the words in there aren't priceless, but $19,000 for the Bible itself sounds like you're cutting off Jesus' word for me. I think what we're seeing is the unraveling of the Republican Party, and also, to some extent, America's democracy, because we have Democrats not afraid or too afraid to fight against this type of stuff too far. You have Democrats talking about Trump shouldn't have been charged because they're afraid that we're going to look weak on crime, while this person we know committed crimes. But if it was a black person, just in this case, if it was a black person, it'll be something completely different. I'm super scared where we're headed with this situation.
Very well said. And the irony of the Barr investigation, which I agree, there should at least be an investigatory dynamic connected to his bar license. But the Supreme Court, based on constitutional standard, allows you to sit on the Supreme Court without a bar license. And I'm sure that will become a defense or rebuttal that it doesn't matter that he's being investigated for his professional license to practice law.